Guys, a very good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the university in National Law University Jodhpur for organizing this first Intra-PIL. So, it gives me a nostalgic feeling to stand here before you and to present something, to be a part of something which started as an intra-university competition and now which has grown because of the efforts of the committee and the center. It has now become an pan-India competition. So I would like to congratulate and I would like to thank the committee and the center for this. Right. So let's, without wasting much time, let's start with this session. First of all, this competition is not just a moot court competition where you will be tested upon your research skill, right? So this is something which acclimatizes you to the reality of courts, right? So filing a PIL is now the major problem with respect to filing a PIL, or filing, for that matter, major problem for any NLU or law student is that generally a student does not know the procedural aspects of a court, right? So if we are very good at research, we are very good at drafting, we are very good at everything else which is within the domain of writing a petition, right? But where we tend to fail is the procedural aspect. What documents would be attested in a file? What documents would be required to prove something, right? And how much stamp duty is required? How much court fee is required? What all affidavits are to be presented along with the file? How does the file reach the bench, right? It is not that just you enter a court and you hand over the file to the judge, right? There's a procedure. You file the copy of a file in the with the registry, and then the file moves from department to department, and ultimately, if it does not have any of the defects, it reaches the bench, right? And then it is put up for hearing at a particular date. So this is what this competition was designed to provide you with, right? So let's start with the nitty-gritties of this competition. You must be having a proposition, right? You must all have read that proposition. That is all about, the proposition is about human rights violation of certain refugees and all, right? So where do we start? Right. So the very first thing is you have to identify the problem. You have to identify the problem, that whether this is something, what are the issues. For example, your proposition is with respect to human rights, but it is not only related with human rights law, it is not only related with the United Nations Convention on Refugees, right? It has certain other aspects as well. So it might be having international aspects as well as all the socio-economic aspects. It might be having an aspect of Article 23 of the Constitution, or aspects of bonded labor, aspects of minimum wages, aspect of it might be an aspect of illegal detention, right? It might be an aspect of foreign ministry. There are certain rules of foreign ministries, so you have to search not only laws but also ancillary regulations related with those laws, right? So that would be one of the important things you have to search for, right? Secondly, you have to identify the bodies and organizations, right? This is very important. Why? Because a proper PIL is worthless if it does not implead a proper party, right? Even if you draft a very good PIL, even if you put in all the laws, put in your hard work, research, everything, but if you've not impleaded a correct party, then your PIL fails, right? Because your order, in that case, the order of the court will not be implemented. For example, if the justice is being provided, has to be provided by the foreign ministry, right? And if you haven't implemented the foreign ministry into as a party in the PIL, in that case, no other ministry can provide you the relief. Although court will order any of the parties, but no party has that power or that jurisdiction to implement the thing, right? So you have to choose your parties very wisely. You have to choose every party wisely, right? Now the third thing is, you have to choose, while choosing the parties, you have to identify which party is creating the problem and which party is solving the issue. So you have to implicate both the parties. So if the commission agents are creating the problem, then you have to implicate commission agents. And if the Ministry of Labor, Social Welfare Department, certain departments are there to meet the requirements, are there to keep the law intact, then you have to implement those departments also in the PIL as a respondent, right? So we'll take up an example through the sample PIL, definitely. And the third important thing is you have to identify the solutions, right? The solution has to be identified, the prayer has to be identified properly. For example, if you just, for example, there was the petition, my earlier petition said that there should be a pipeline, which should be water pipeline should be provided to a particular village. So you have to implement village sarpanch through village panchayat, through the secretary of panchayat. Okay, you have to implement government, because water supply is under the state list. So you have to implement the government of Rajasthan. If the village is in Rajasthan, so you have to implement the government of Rajasthan also as a party, right? And also the prayer should be that you have to install a pipeline, construct a way that the pipeline is not harmed or damaged in future, right? And you should appoint a person who will look after that pipeline. Okay, so the prayer should include these 3 points. I hope I am clear with that. In case you have any question, you can write that question in your chat box, right? The chat box is visible to me. You can write questions in the chat box. Okay, so I hope I am clear with this thing, that the prayer should be holistic and futuristic, right? If the prayer is not futuristic, the relief will not sustain for long, right? The relief will die then and there. So the prayer also has to be futuristic. Okay, next thing is the distinction between PIL and a normal moot court or normal litigation is, the very first thing, there are separate rules for drafting PIL and filing a PIL. So the moot court, the moot court committee provides laws, right? Certain regulations for drafting of moot court memos, right? But in this case, in the case of PIL, you have to draft a PIL petition based on the laws provided by the committee and center, the rules, as well as the rules and regulation of a particular high court. So every high court has different rules and regulations. Every high court has different rules and regulations with respect to drafting of a PIL. Okay, so I'll show you certain rules. These are Rajasthan High Court rules for drafting of PILs, right? So these Rajasthan High Court rules specifically provide for how a PIL has to be drafted, what all has to be included, what para should be there, what type of affidavit should be there, and what all parties should swear under those affidavits, right? So if you have High Court, the jurisdiction of Rajasthan High Court, then you'll search for the rules of Rajasthan High Court with respect to PILs, right? Like this, public interest litigation generally. So there are rules, rule 385 A, B, C, and D. These are for Rajasthan High Court. Okay, these are not for any other high court. So whichever high court you are filing a petition of PIL, you have to look into the rules of that high court, that particular high court, and that too PIL rules, right? PIL rules are different from general litigation rules, so you have to specially vouch for the PIL rules, right? Now, second thing is the performa of PIL. Performa of PIL will also be provided in the rules, right? The rules will be, the High Court rules will be providing performa of PIL. If you do not get the performa in the rules, then you have to go by the sample PIL, which will be provided to you, right? So this has to be a mixture of the High Court rules along with the this has to be a mixture of High Court rules along with the rules provided by the committee in the center and the sample PIL. Okay, so the next thing is separate affidavits. So there are 3 types of affidavits which you have to attest and annex along with the petition. The first one will be an affidavit for support of the petition, in support of the petition. So this affidavit says that I have drafted this petition myself, and this is a public interest litigation petition, and I do not have any personal motive, private motive, agenda behind this petition. Second is the affidavit in support of the documents. Whatever documents, whatever evidences you are providing, you have to file an affidavit that these are true and genuine copies, and there is no fabricated evidence in this with this petition. And the third one is additional affidavit. In case you want to submit any additional document, so once the PIL is filed and then thereafter you want to submit an additional document, so that additional document requires an additional affidavit of every petitioner, right? If there are 2 or 3 petitioners, there will be affidavit of all the 3 petitioners and all 3 affidavits of all the 3 petitioners, right? The next thing is annexures and proofs. Annexure and proof is, annexures are those documents or those evidences which you require to prove something, right? To prove, for example, if there is a railway line crossing through the market, so I've put in some photographs stating that this is the problem which the commuters are facing, right? If there is, say, encroachment on roads, right? So you put in photographs, or you an RTI application. You file an RTI application stating that, are requesting the government bodies, the responsible authorities. So we'll discuss the RTI as well later on. Like, the next thing is representation. This is the most important thing. If this is not there, if the representation thing is not there in the petition, your petition stands rejected. Now, what is representation? Basically, representation is the request which you make to the executive authorities for solution of the problem. You cannot directly approach the court, right, for solution of a problem. You have to make a representation before the government, before the responsible authorities to solve the problem. For example, if there is a crisis of refugees, right, so you should have filed a representation on behalf of the refugees to the concerned ministry, to the concerned department, to the concerned office, right? And that should be before a reasonable time. For example, if you are filing the representation just a day before filing the petition, that won't work, because the authorities did not get sufficient time to execute. They can take a plea in the court that we did not give sufficient time, we have the representation but we need time. So your PIL stands rejected at that very point. So you should give sufficient time to the authorities. For example, 15 days, 20 days, 1 month at least you should give to the authorities. So the representation should have been filed at least 15 to 20 days, depending upon the proposition. If it requires urgent hearing, so if something is urgent, you can file a representation and ask for an urgent hearing, and the petition and the PIL petition and representation can have a 3-4 days of gap, right? I hope I'm clear with this. Is there any question with respect to this? No? No, you cannot manufacture data for this petition competition, right? You just have to prepare a draft of RTI application. So आपकी RTI application को देख के we can gauge कि आपने सही क्या इस RTI का response कैसा आएगा, right? You cannot manufacture data, but yes, if you have reports from, say, UNHCR or report from some other organization, body, और सम प्राइवेट एनजीओ रिपोर्ट्स, तो वो आप कर सकते हो, राइट? बट इसमें भी एक चीज ध्यान रखनी है, यू कैन नॉट पुट इन a newspaper report. You cannot just rely on a newspaper report, because newspaper report is not considered as an admissible evidence. It is a hearsay evidence. You must have studied this thing while studying Evidence Act. Newspaper report is a hearsay evidence, and I have personally I faced this thing in the court of law कि आप newspaper report, because I was very young at that time, not having read Evidence Act thoroughly. तो जोश जोश में हमने petition file की थी, उसमें newspaper reports were used as evidences, right? कि newspaper में ये आया है कि PIL में ऐसा, और I'll show you that thing, but that won't work. ठीक है, हम students थे, we were 20 years of age, so court considered this thing, but ऐसा नहीं होता है जनरली कोर्ट्स में, ठीक है? छोटे बच्चों को ऐसा माफी दे देते हैं, बट कोर्ट्स में ऐसा नहीं होगा. दे आर वेरी रुथलेस, ठीक है? और कॉम्पिटिशन में स्पेशली जजेस आर वेरी रुथलेस. सो यू हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल अबाउट दिस, व्हिच एविडेंस इज एक्सेप्टेबल, व्हिच इज नॉट. यू हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल, ठीक है? जैसे प्राइवेट एनजीओज में असर की जो रिपोर्ट है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू स्कूल्स, ठीक है, प्रथम की जो असर रिपोर्ट है, दैट इज an acceptable evidence, because Supreme Court has accepted that report number of times in various judgments. It has cited that report. But some other NGO जिसकी रिपोर्ट कभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने साइट नहीं की है कहीं पे, तो that won't be admissible. You have to put in something else along with that report to prove your argument, right? So let's see a sample of the petition. Yeah. So this is the sample petition. The very first thing is, I'm sorry for the orientation of this petition, really sorry for this, but since it is a PDF, I couldn't do anything much. Now, the very first thing is, petitioner should be very clear. Okay, petitioner and respondent should be very clear. The synopsis states in brief what relief do you want. The synopsis states in brief what relief do you want, what exactly do you want. वो synopsis में आपको बता देना, because judges don't have that much time. So admission process में the very first thing, the फर्स्ट हियरिंग में जब एडमिशन की बहस होगी, वहां पे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स होंगे एडमिशन के लिए, तो सिनॉप्सिस विल बी द ओनली थिंग व्हिच वुड वर्क. ओके, सो द नेक्स्ट. Now, this is the index, and one by one we'll go. So, writ petition, right? Writ petition, and then affidavit in support of the writ petition, and thereafter all the annexures. Annexures means evidences and proofs which you submit to the court, right? Let's see. We'll take up some important things only, and rest you have the petition with you. You'll have a copy of petition. I suppose the committee must have sent you the copy, right? So I will take up questions a bit later. Just can we wait, right? Can we just look into these things and then we'll take up questions, okay? If any, with respect to preparation of PIL, right? So the very first thing here is the petitioner, complete details of the petitioner. Petitioner कौन है, क्या करता है, क्या एज का है, everything, and in the same language. Copy paste, ये copy paste चलता है, नाम change कर लेना, but there should be, you shouldn't use my name in your petition. ठीक है, copy paste करते वक्त at least इतना आपको ध्यान रखना है, ठीक है? So we were two petitioners. Data of the means complete information of the petitioner, who is the petitioner, son of so and so, and a permanent resident of so and so, right? And then complete list of respondents, right? This is very important. A complete list of respondents is very important. You know why? Because a complete list of respondents is important because these are the people, these are the authorities who are going to implement your PIL, and even if one is missing, your PIL, your petition, your relief won't get implemented, right? So choose these things wisely, choose them wisely, right? ये respondents, 2 दिन लगेंगे respondents choose करने में petition के, ठीक है? Research, 2 दिन की research जाएगी सिर्फ respondents में और prayer में, right? So, and one more thing which people generally do, any ministry, government authority will not be represented by the minister. Okay, if you represent, because ministers tend to change, right? आज government dissolve होगी, parliament, legislature dissolve हो गया, there won't be any minister in that case. So these are not represented by the minister. They have to be represented by someone else, some IAS officer or IPS officer, services से के officers से ही represent इनको करेंगे, right? Now, the next thing is stating that this petition is filed by me for a public cause and there is no private motive, no one has paid me for this, right? There is no incentive for me to file this PIL and all these things. तो ये जो particulars हैं, ये आपको rules में ही लिखे हुए मिलेंगे, ठीक है? Every high court has its own rules, जैसा मैंने बताया, and you will get these particulars. They've mentioned specifically what all particulars do you need to write in the petition before starting with the petition, right? Next is statement of facts and issues. सारे facts issues बता दो, specifically क्या problem है, क्या नहीं है. Earlier we used to this is a petition from 2014. We had drafted it and presented this petition in 2014. At that time, they were not using footnotes and all, just like we use in our courtroom exercises or moot courts, we use footnotes, right? At that time, Rajasthan High Court was not using footnotes. अब वो use करने लगे हैं footnotes to cite for annexures and all. तो इसीलिए आप देखोगे यहाँ पे annexures and all have not been cited, ठीक है, through ठीक है. So annexures have been cited in the passage paragraph itself, right? So it would be better if you use footnoting, right? If you do footnoting for these annexures as well as case laws, ठीक है. ये स्टेटमेंट ऑफ फैक्ट्स हो गया विच यू आर प्रूविंग थ्रू एनेक्चर्स, राइट? ये सब कुछ एनेक्चर्स से प्रूव हो रहा है. नाउ एनेक्चर्स मे बी फोटोग्राफ्स. आपके केस में प्रोपोजिशन में यू कैन नॉट हैव फोटोग्राफ्स. आई नो you cannot have photographs, but you can have reports of certain NGOs. You can have you can take photographs of certain other, you know, similarly situated people, because this is a PIL of all the refugees. तो आप किसी रिफ्यूजी की जो या किसी you know जो पल्लीदार है, पल्लीदार स्पेसिफिक टर्म इज पल्लीदार, राइट? तो किसी पल्लीदार की वहां जाके यू कैन क्लिक इमेज, यू कैन टॉक टू हिम, व्हाट ऑल प्रॉब्लम्स इज ही फेसिंग. थोड़ा सा एक एम्पिरिकल रिसर्च इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर अ पीआईएल, राइट? थोड़ा इसलिए प्रॉब्लमैटिक होता है पीआईएल फाइल करना, बट या सो now this is affidavit in support of petition for both the petitioners, and then these are annexures, right? So this was a petition where the facts were that there was a railway line passing through a crowded market in the city of Bikaner in Rajasthan, right? So we've attached a Google map to show where it is. ठीक है, the very first thing is Google map. थोड़े अच्छे क्वालिटी के आप मतलब annexures लगा सकते हो, ठीक है? तो टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत एडवांस अब हो गई लास्ट 10 इयर्स के कंपैरिजन में, तो यू कैन हैव गुड annexures, गुड फोटोग्राफ्स एंड ऑल, ठीक है? तो वो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, वो आपको ध्यान में रखना है कि एविडेंसेस शुड हैव अ वैल्यू, देयर शुड बी एन एविडेंशियरी वैल्यू, राइट? सो दिस इज एडिशनल एफिडेविट, और ये आपका जो भी डॉक्यूमेंट आप प्रूफ कर रहे हो, मतलब आइडेंटिटी प्रूफ, दिस इज आइडेंटिटी बिकॉज आई had mentioned that I am a permanent resident of this place and hence I am filing this petition. So this is a domicile certificate, right? This was required for this petition, right? I hope the points of petition are clear. Yes, the points are clear, I suppose. The next thing is important points to note. Again, the nature of writ is the most important thing. What type of writ are you filing, whether it is habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, prohibition, whatever writ it is, you have to mention, you have to request the court to issue the writ to the respondent or respondent number 1 and 2. For example, habeas corpus to respondent number 1 and 2, mandamus to respondent number 3 and 4, certiorari to respondent number this, whatever it is. You can specifically mention the respondent number also if you are very sure that this is the only respondent who can implement this order, right? So very first thing is nature of writ should be very clear. There can be two writs. Secondly, you can also make a plea for interim relief. Interim relief is by the time this petition gets over, please provide this, at least this relief, right? That is an interim relief. The next thing is representation. Again, representation is very important. Representation is important क्यों? क्योंकि जब तक आप गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटी को अप्रोच नहीं करोगे फॉर सोल्यूशन ऑफ योर प्रॉब्लम, कोर्ट विल नॉट एंटरटेन योर पीआईएल. क्यों? क्योंकि कोर्ट is not the first resort, court is the last resort. When you've exhausted all your resources, when you've exhausted all the authorities, all those authorities where you could have gone, thereafter only you can go to the court. So you have to prove कि हमने सारे possible जो authorities थे उनसे request कर ली है, बहुत time उनको दे भी दिया है, but they are not providing us with the proper relief, with the constitutional relief, right? And then annexures, though they need not be proved, annexures need not be proved beyond reasonable doubt, but yes, they should have an evidentiary value because this is not a criminal law and PIL में generally courts जो है थोड़े generous होते हैं, right? So you need not prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. ठीक है, तो ये चीज आपको ध्यान में रखनी है. Now, in case you have any questions with respect to this PIL drafting, I can entertain them. Any question? How should we proceed? Can we use pictures available on Google as a part of any report? You can use pictures on Google, but they will be considered as a hearsay evidence. ठीक है, तो आपको उसके सपोर्ट में कुछ और देना पड़ेगा. You can use Google pictures, but I would advise you not to, क्योंकि फिर वो hearsay evidence है, वो कोर्ट में रिजेक्ट होगा, मार्क्स कटेंगे. That's it. Refugees in the problem belong to a fictional country and community. How do we use real life reports? You can show real life reports of other refugees. You can say कि ये refugees की ये प्रॉब्लम है इंडिया में, एंड सेम प्रॉब्लम अगर इंडिया में इन refugees की है तो दूसरे refugees की भी वही प्रॉब्लम होगी. ठीक है, यू कैन टॉक टू द कमीशन एजेंट्स कि भाई वो क्या करते हैं ऐसे केस में. कमीशन एजेंट्स का भी एक वहां पे इशू है, राइट. यू कैन टॉक टू डिफरेंट कमीशन एजेंट्स. एक सर्वेज होंगे, अदर अलग एनजीओ के सर्वेज होंगे, वो आप ले सकते हो. ठीक है, सो the Shantanu, am I clear with the did I answer your question? Shantanu had a question with respect to representation. Did I answer your question? Yes. Anything else? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I am delighted to take this session. Thank you very much and all the best, guys, for the competition. I hope you learn a lot. Yes, you will learn a lot, definitely. I've learned a lot by filing PILs during my NLU 5 years of NLU. I learned a lot by filing PILs. I learned a lot by working with the committee and the center, and I thank the committee and center for keeping this thing alive. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys.
Sir, a couple of questions have come on the chat box.
Yes.
By Ikra and Roshan.
Okay. Is it important for us to attach permanent residence certificate? No, it is not important, because I belong to Bikaner. So that was the problem. That's why I attached a permanent residence certificate there. Okay. You can attach any other identity proof. That can be fictitious also. In our case, how do we show representation through RTI? No, representation is not through RTI. Oh, I suppose I'll give you a sample of RTI. You can take up a sample. So this does not have a sample. No problem. So RTI is different from representation. Through RTI, you are requesting for some information, right? So how you've drafted your RTI, you'll be judged on the basis of drafting that RTI. ठीक है ना? उसका response will be based on the RTI itself, your draft. Representation is something through which you request the authorities to solve the problem. So these are two different things. You can write a representation. तो आपने किस हिसाब से उसको ड्राफ्ट किया है, उसके बेसिस पे उसकी वेरासिटी चेक हो जाएगी. नो प्रॉब्लम. Okay, are we to follow the order of components given under rule 9 point? Yes, you have to, unless they are in contravention with the rules, you have to follow those orders, right? Difference between the requirements of filing a PIL by individual and institution. So institution will be represented by a person, right? An authority. So in case of institution, you have to attach additional affidavit by the institution stating that this person this person will be representing us. For example, a company files a PIL or an NGO files a PIL. So the head of the NGO or the trustees of an NGO are allowed to represent, right? Are asked to represent the institution. Where do we add the representation as a part of the PIL? Under what head? So representation will be added as an annexure. RTI application will be added as an annexure, right? All these things will be added as annexures, and the committee must have sent you or will be sending you the a copy of the sample PIL, right? So you can take idea from that. I hope you will be sending, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So you can take an idea from that also. There's a heading sources of information in the format given to us. What are we expected to add in the add in that. Source means what, where did you get this information from? So sources of information can be direct interview of the affected parties, or photographs, newspaper reports. You can write in that statement sources of information, or and RTI applications also. When we talk about RTI response, no, you are not required to show response because you are not filing an RTI application, right? So you are not you will not be required to submit a response of the RTI. I think this has been clearly mentioned in the rules that the RTI has to be fictitious, right? You are not supposed to file originally an RTI, but your RTI application should correctly mention the office with which you are filing the application, right? It should correctly mention the authority, the position to which the officer to which you filed an RTI application. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, sure. So thank you very much. I hope there are no more questions. And thank you. Hope to meet you soon again. Goodbye.
So sorry to interrupt. I think there is one last question from Saksham.
Saksham, the facts in the RTI also to justify public interest, etc., for the court to entertain the petitions. The thing is, you don't have to rely on RTI. Sometimes it happens that you filed an RTI, but you haven't received a response within 1 month. So what you do is you annex the RTI application and you state to the court that we haven't yet received the response. Okay. And in the competition, you won't be judged on the type of response, but on the type of questions you've put in during an RTI, in the RTI applications, right? आपने क्या question put in किया है, उसका क्या answer आता, वो हम अपने आप देख लें कि आंसर इसका क्या आना चाहिए, right? On the basis of that we can judge your petition. Am I clear? Okay, good.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out
You're
your
welcome.
invaluable time and for enlightening us and for patiently answering all the questions. I assume a lot of participants will be drafting a PIL for the very first time, and the session would be immensely beneficial to them. So thank you again, and thank you and best of luck to all the participants present here.